Hello, guys and dolls. Welcome back to the podcast. Hello, guys and dolls. Welcome back to the podcast, Conversations with Celia, and I'm your host, Celia Lorraine. Today is Wednesday, May 22nd, 2024, and I know it's been a while since I've made an episode, but today in this episode, we'll discuss and review the popular 2012 Brazilian telenovela Cheias Charme from Global TV. Now, for those wondering what Cheias Charme is, Cheias Charme is a Brazilian telenovela that came out in 2012 that focuses on three maids who shared the same name, Maria, and the whole premise shows that these three maids from Maria do Rosario, Maria da Pinha, and Maria Priscila, they wind up meeting up at the police station. They wind up forming a friendship between the three of them, and them writing and pretty much they become famous from writing a song, from producing and making a video about a viral song about pretty much them dissing their employers. And the whole ton of us then rise to fame while dealing with the machinations of their arch nemesis diva / former boss, a vain diva named Shiny, and her crazy sidekick Socorro. And in this podcast, I'll discuss, pretty much recap and review the series by memory. And before I get into this podcast episode, considering that I am recapping and reviewing a 143 long telenovela, there will be spoilers, so if you haven't watched it, don't listen to this episode. If you watched it, you can listen to this episode. Or if you don't have no intention of watching it, then you can listen to this episode. But anyways, let's get into it. So, the premise of the episode is these three maids who share the same name, Maria. And for the simplicity's sake, I'm just going to refer to them by their... Since the three main characters are named Marias, I'm just going to refer to them by their names stated in the series. Maria da Pinha, Maria do Rosario, and Maria Priscila, they all met me at the police station one frenzy night, and they become the best of friends. Now, let's get into the backgrounds of the three Marias. There's Maria do Rosario, our first main character. Maria do Rosario is she works at her adopted father Sidney's catering company. If Rosario's backstory, she became an orphan when she lost her family in a flood. And her dad Sidney adopted her from the orphanage while working as a waiter at some catering event, and he was enchanted by Rosario's singing voice that he decides to adopt her. But so Rosario, she works at her dad's catering business, and she winds up working as a maid for Shiny, while also falling for her co-worker while falling for her employee at her dad's catering business named Inacio, who resembles a pop star, this well-known pop star named Fabian, who he resents. And we'll know why when we get into his backstory. Then there's the other maid, Maria the Pina, who was pretty much, as teachers call it, the team mom. The team mom. Maria's backstory is that she raised her siblings. Her household consists of two siblings, two younger siblings, Ilano and Alana, her son Patrick, and her scrub of a husband, Sandro. And the backstory of Pina was she had to take care of her siblings when their mom and dad deserted them. The dad deserted the family because he didn't believe Ilano was his, and the mom deserted the family for another man. So Pina had to step up and raise her siblings. And Pina, she also has to deal with her scoundrel of a husband, Sandro, who's pretty much, like I said, a scrub. And Pina, she used to work as a maid for Shiny until Shine pretty much attacked her because when Pina accidentally ruined her dress, which causes pretty much the upstart such chaos of the later events. And last but not least, there's Sita, who has a Cinderella-esque backstory. Sita was the daughter of a maid named Dolores who worked for this wealthy family called the Sarmientos, and when her mom died, she was taken in by the Sarmientos since she didn't have any other family left. Since her dad, Santos, was also deceased as well. And the Sarmientos, they pretty much, when she was like still young, they hired her as a maid, having them wait for her daughters and have her work alongside her godmother Valda, which they should have gotten arrested for child labor because of the fact they literally employed a minor. And they pretty much they and their daughters, which consist of a drunk named Mariola and a stuck-up jet setter named Isadora, treat Sita like crap to the wind. And then there's Shiny, the main villain. I suppose pretty much. Shiny is pretty much pretty much your typical vain super diva. And she's extremely obnoxious, crazy, with her main enabler being her ex-husband, who pretty much doesn't even stand up to her. And then there's her sidekick, Socorro, who's pretty much your typical clumsy bimbo. Socorro is your typical clumsy bimbo. She always every time she tries to sabotage the Empreguetes, she always wind up sabotaging her employer. And then but let's get into the other characters. They all meet at a police station. They're in the police station for various reasons. Pina's in the police station to file a report against Shaini. Rosario's in the police station because she went to go see Fabian in concert and pretty much got in trouble with security. And then Sita is in the police station because she got into it with another woman over Rodney, a graffiti artist who works at a local farmer's market. And now I'm going to discuss the whole premise of the Empreguetes prior to their fame. So Rosario, she starts working for Shaini, and because of Phoebe and Shiny pretty much collaborating together, she winds up getting a lot more closer to Fabian, to the point she tried to give Fabian her demo. And while working with, and also she also tries to give her demo to Shiny and Fabian's manager, Tom Bosters, who will become very important later on. Only for Tom to state that pretty much her sound is pretty much already oversaturated. Then with Sita, who works as a maid for the Sarmientos and has been working as a maid since she was a kid and pretty much had to educate herself since she wasn't allowed to go to school. Which, like I said, the Sarmientos, they should have got in trouble for that since they. But yeah, the Sarmientos, but then again, the Sarmientos, they done a lot of illegal shit, which is foreshadowing. But Sita, she falls for pretty much a man named Conrado, who's pretty much your typical social climbing gold digger. Excuse me for sneezing. Conrado is pretty much your typical social climbing gold digger, and one of those snooty gold diggers at that, who he's probably one of the rare examples of a male gold digger and probably I've seen in media. He's also super flaky as well, but he winds up falling for Sita, much to the jealousy of Isadora. Since Conrado fell for Sita, thinking that she was the daughter of the Sarmientos, until Isadora uploads a photo of Sita in her maid's outfit, which causes Conrado to dump Sita and date Isadora. And pretty much when Sita is pretty much and that was the moment the family showed their true colors towards Sita. And pretty much treat her even worse than they treated her before. And then with Peanut initially worked for Maslova, who happens to be the grandmother of Conrado, and she, like Conrado, is pretty much your snobbish social climber who alongside Conrado's late mother pretty much raised Conrado to be the way he is. And Conrado has a father named Otto, he's estranged from, who is the one person out of Conrado's family that has sense, and he's also important as well. But Maslova pretty much dismisses Peanut. She went on to go work for a lawyer named Leah. I hope I pronounced her name correctly. And Leah, she's pretty much the typical overworked lawyer who lives with her husband Alejandro, who's a scumbag, who likes making soup with maids, or empreguetes as they're referred to. A rebellious teenage son named Samuel and a daughter named Manuela, who she barely has time to spend with because of her pretty much working a lot. In Lygia, she pretty much pretty much winds up representing Pina in her case until she drops out at the last moment. But after all, now let's get into their fame. One night, while Shiny was gone at tour, Rosario invites Pina and Sita to spend the night at Shiny's mansion. with Sakura trying to break in, and one day Rosario wakes up and writes the song Vida La Empreguetes, which is pretty much a diss record towards their employees, and decides to film a pretty much campy video set to it, and record the song with the help of the local record producer Clayton, who winds up uploading it on YouTube, and it winds up going viral. Launching them to fame. But Shaini, she was so big mad that she had them press charges against them for trespassing, and I also forgot to mention that Pina winds up winning her case against Shaini, represented by her lawyer brother, while Shaini is represented by Herberto, the fiance of Ariella. And I should note that the bosses, with the exception of Liga, they have a little Mean Girls clique going on with them. But the Empreguetes but Shaini passing charges on the Empreguetes winds up backfiring on them, that because they wind up becoming, pretty much people wind up becoming sympathetic to them and take up their cause, and pretty much getting them set from pretty much out of jail, which worked. And Sita winds up causing a scene when Isadora and Conrado announces their engagement, which Sonia pretty much reams her for. But not only does Fabian all of a sudden is interested in Rosario, but they wind up getting a manager in the form of none other than Tom Bostros, which that's like a big conflict of interest, the fact that Tom Bostros is their manager, since he also manages Shaini. Which there is a big deal made about that, where Shaini literally has him tied up in the bed and punishes him by waxing off his legs. But the Empreguetes, they wind up rising to popularity, much to this thing of Shaini, who tries so hard to sabotage them, alongside her bimbo assistant Shakuro, which includes but not limited to trying to give the Empreguetes Fergola tea to sabotage the performance, which backfires since Shaini winds up drinking the tea instead, because the tea that Socorro gave them was the normal tea. And they become pretty much more popular and more famous enough for Sita to pretty much give a one-day notice towards her employers during their, and that is the Sarmiento double wedding, no less. Which is the most notable scene in the series. And Sita, not only that, but Sita, she also winds up getting the last laugh as well, since as Sita's fortunes go up, the Sarmiento's fortunes go down. Because for those asking what happens with the Sarmientos, Hernani and Conrado, they get caught. Ilano pretty much busts them for money laundering, which caused Conrado and Hernani their license to practice. And Conrado looked to pretty much work at a shoe store. And when Otto who pretty much becomes the potential love interest that Pina finds out, gets one of his. He pretty much disowns Corrado and pretty much kicks Maslova out of the house. And then now let's get into the downfall. So, in the later chapters, Socorro gets into a fight with Cheyenne, which leads to her leaving Cheyenne. And work is pretty much the effect of the Empreguetes, but Cheyenne realizes, pretty much puts a plan ahead that pretty much use Socorro to pretty much sabotage the Empreguetes on the inside. And that's when pretty much things started taking a turn for the worse. First, Sita pretty much, and that's when the characters become a lot more annoying. First thing first with Rosario, who's too busy chasing after Fabian to pretty much, who's pursuing fame and to so gung-ho over Fabian that wants to affect their relationship with Ignacio, who still has trauma from his crazy nut job girlfriend Dahlia. Sita, she doesn't know whether or not to be with Ilano or Conrado. And not only that, but she finds out from Hernani that she's his daughter. So apparently one night, which becomes more later. So one night, Hernani got into an argument with Sonia and slept with Dolores, Sita's mom. And when he tells Sita that Sita pretty much drops everything and moves into Sarmiento house. That's how fast it happens. Much to the chagrin of Sonia, who pretty much have to sell her art gallery because of what happened. And rewatching it and looking back at it now, that whole twist was super. Everything about that twist was predictable. And then concerning how literally rephrase that. Concerning the fact what's revealed near the end of the series, the whole twist was predictable and also plot convenience as well. Concerning the fact, the Sarmientos, they're losing everything due to Hernani being a shady shark, and he conveniently claims to be Sita's father. And Conrado, being the flaky, opportunistic, gold-digging social climber he is, he's all of a sudden in love with Sita, which leads him to kiss Sita, which angers Isadora so much she pretty much steals Sita's credit cards and spend them. And when Sita finds out about it, instead of going to the police, which she gets convinced by her dad, she decides to hire Sonia and Isadora as maids and pretty much invites some of the other characters to a pool party. Then, but Pina, she's pretty much through with Sandro, but her time with the Empreguetes is pretty much eating up time with her son, which causes Patrick to enter a contest, which he wants a dance contest, which winds up going sorry because he winds up developing a stage fright. And Sandro pretty much feels threatened by Pina being spending time with Otto. And I also forgot to mention that was his older thing. Things started improving in Pena's household with Lana attending the same school as Samuel and all that. And speaking of Samuel, and excuse me for the background noise. And I forgot to mention that since I've been discussing the main three characters, that there's a big storyline where Lygia pretty much almost dies from has some near fatal health issues, which I forgot to mention that. Samuel finds out that Alejandro is his father. He winds up pretty much trying to find his biological father, who was at the Empreguetes show, and his biological father is a surfer from Pernambuco named Gilson. And he develops a bond with him. And Gilson's pretty much there just to pretty much put a wedge between Pena and Lygia, since Pena winds up falling in love with Gilson instead of Otto. Which kind of derails her category, which I'll get into by the conclusion. But at one point, Sandro, everything's going down here for Sandro, with Pena pretty much having him arrested and him serving time in jail. Until he finds some honest work as a cab driver and winds up finding a bunch of money, which he winds up returning to the gentleman that left it. And he pretty much redeems himself setting up a dog petting service. Like, I forgot, like, I'm going by memory. Pretty much working as a dog trainer. To the point he wants to make an appearance on Fussed Out, and I may get the show incorrect. Then Sita's ex-love interest, Rodney, who used to mess around with a girl named Brunessa, who's the niece of Pena's neighbor Yvonne. Like I said, there's so many characters in this show that it's hard to keep up with the storylines. He's a graffiti artist that's part of this graffiti art crew called the Barallo Crew, and Sonia, he becomes famous when Sonia tries to plagiarize his work and claim his work as his, which winds up attracting the attention of a big-time gallery owner, and him becoming a world-famous artist. Not to mention, he becomes romantically involved with Laria, the sister of Lygia. And then with Rosario, she's pretty much too busy pursuing her dreams and getting into conflicts with her bandmates, which all comes to a head when Sita and Pena are able to make it to a show, causing Rosario to pretty much perform solo. And now let's get into the post-breakup, and the Empreguetes getting back together. So when the Empreguetes break up, pretty much a lot of focus is done to their personal life. Pena is pretty much having her romantic relationship with Gilson. Sita is playing with Ilano's emotions and getting back together with Conrado. And then Rosario, she's pursuing fame as a solo artist. Then meanwhile, Fabian I'm sorry if I pause for a few moments, but while a lot of chaos was going on, Fabian, as part of Socorro's machinations, Cheyenne catches Fabian with Rosario and quote unquote disfigures him by throwing hot water thrown by Cheyenne, who was blinded by the pepper spray she sprayed in her eyes. And Fabian, he suffers burn injuries in his face that quote unquote doesn't disfigure him, but you know how vain some of these singers is. Fabian is as vain as you would get. So Fabian, since Fabian has recuperated from what Cheyenne did to him, Tom Bastos comes up with the bright idea to hire Ignacio to pretty much pretend to be Fabian and do a couple of shows as Fabian while the real Fabian recovers from his accident. Does this idea sound familiar to you? And when Tom comes to Ignacio with the proposal, Ignacio pretty much attacks Tom, since Tom's machinations pretty much caused the wedge between him and Rosario's relationship and drove further. Ignacio reluctantly agrees to the whole situation, with him getting complete training from Fabian. And Ignacio, aka not Fabian, pretty much the whole scheme winds up going great, with Rosario not even recognizing her ex-boyfriend, but the whole situation falls apart during Rosario's first solo performance, and I'm sorry to excuse the background noise. During Rosario's first solo performance, while Rosario and not Fabian / Ignacio kisses, the real Fabian pops up on stage, causing Rosario to be humiliated and pretty much Fabian's career to fall down the toilet. And pretty much Rosario to get angry at Ignacio. Then the Empreguetes, who all got dolls in themselves, they wind up reuniting at a award show. And then you wait Cheyenne to reward Socorro for pretty much destroying the Empreguetes. She has Socorro do a bunch of tasks so she could pretty much make Socorro a singer, but when Socorro overhears Cheyenne speaking to her ex-husband saying that she wasn't gonna pretty much promote her to a singer, Socorro and Lucero team up together to sabotage Cheyenne. Like I said, I probably fell asleep watching some of the chapters. With Lucero pretty much joining Socorro after finding out that in the past, Cheyenne sabotaged the female lead singer of a band to take her place by giving her the royalty, which causes people to have squeaky voices, and the girl became addicted to the tea. Which they give to Cheyenne when she's set to perform with Luan Santana. And side note, it's quite ironic for Luan Santana and Bruno Mazzeo, who plays Tom Bastos, to be in the same show together, concerning that whole debacle, where Bruno Mazzeo got massacred by a bunch of Luan Santana fans because he called Luan Santana a cross-eyed version of Wang Namora. But that's neither here or there. I'm just listing an interesting fact. And pretty much, long story short, Lucero decides to pretty much kick Cheyenne to the curb in favor of managing Socorro, who reinvents herself as a Lady Gaga, a singer named Lady Prada. And Lady Prada's debut show is the music award show that the Empreguetes are attending. And the hosts, not only do they make fun of the whole Fabian and Ignacio scandal, but the Empreguetes, they wound up winning an award, which caused them to reunite. And backstage, Wanderley, who found Sita's license in the sugar containers, tells Sydney pretty much how Socorro's been sabotaging the girls, and it all leads to, and when Sydney and Wanderley tells the girls the tea, this caused them to pretty much get into a cafe with not only expose Shiny, but also get into a cafe with Shiny and Lady Prada. But the Empreguetes decided to reunite. And now conclusion into the individual storylines. Ignacio and Fabian decides to do a joint interview together to pretty much clear the air with the whole situation. And this is where we know Ignacio's backstory in his history with Delia. So years before he met Rosario, Ignacio worked as a ninja where he fell in love with the daughter of his sensei, or his trainer, Delia, who was a hardcore Fabian fan, that when Ignacio got into a car accident, she had the doctor perform plastic surgery on his face to the point she looked like Fabian. That's how much of a hardcore fangirl she was. She literally had a doctor pretty much change her boyfriend's appearance to resemble her idol. And that pretty much... And I can imagine how Ignacio feeling. You imagine pretty much getting in an accident and you look like your girlfriend's idol, all because your girlfriend lived due to plastic surgery, and pretty much, and that caused Ignacio to resent Fabian. And also during the interview, since a lot of people speculate that Fabian and Ignacio were twin brothers, Simone, Fabian's manager, states that her and Fabian are the same age. And I forgot to mention that there's this recurring gag where Fabian is tight-lipped about his age, and it's revealed, and we all know why. Kind of find out Fabian is the same age as his twin sister Simone, which is 44, which winds up killing his fan base. Then with Pina winds up falling for Gilson, which drives a wedge in her friendship with Ligia. Because Ligia at this point, she caught her husband cheating on her with Brunessa, and becomes even more hurt that Alejandro made it past that Pina when she employed Pina. And pretty much she kicks Alejandro to the curb. And Ligia winds up developing feelings for Gilson, which wind up causing the wedge between her and Pina. And things get even more worse for Ligia when Samuel gets involved in a surfing accident, and causing him to have surgery, which he pulls through. And then with Sita, Sarmiento pretty much shows his true colors yet again by blocking Sita in the bathroom when Sita refused to give him some money so he can pretty much escape justice or go on the run, which causes her to get saved by Lana, who's trying to pursue a co-worker of his. I forgot her name. If it is wondering, Ilana and the co-worker, they don't get together since the co-worker gets impregnated by her baby daddy. And then Sita decides to sue her employers, which about dang time. And Sita gives Ilana evidence, her diary as evidence to use against them. And Ilana winds up reading the diary because impressed by Sita's writing. while building evidence for a case, Ilana also revealed to Sita the biggest shocker. Ilana was able to get DNA from Ariella, who's not only married to Umberto, but they have a child together now, and Ariella has also since given up her drunken ways. But Ilana, he was able to get DNA from Ariella, who's also nicer to Sita. And the test revealed that Sita wasn't her Sarmento, which caused me shock. Which meant that Sarmento pretty much lied about Sita being his daughter just so he could get money from her. And they wanted reconciling. Now let's get into the conclusion. The Empreguetes and the Patras, they're on a talk show. And Shaini pretty much had a heel feet turn, and Bridge is much nicer person. And after they tape the show, Rosario and Shaini get kidnapped by Delia. Ignacio's crazy, Fabian-obsessed ex-girlfriend who escaped from the psycho ward. Which leads to Ignacio and Fabian teaming up together pretty much rescue Rosario and Shaini alongside his co-workers from work, including Dina. Pretty much, I forgot the name of the Gerardo and Dina, who Ignacio used to date. They save the girls, and Delia and her cohorts, they get arrested. Then in the time jump, things between Pina and Gilson pretty much go awry. Sita not only wins her lawsuit against the Sarmentos, but she winds up publishing a book based on her diary. And Rosario and Ignacio winds up getting back together. And the series concludes with Ilano and Sita and Rosario and Ignacio getting married in a double wedding. And not only Hernani getting out of jail. Isadora apologizes to Sita for the way she treated her. And Sita and Isadora, who have been divorced from Corrado, pretty much moved on with Ditino, a member of Rodinet's graffiti crew. And Isadora and Ariella have moved on to separate lives. Meanwhile, their parents are pretty much poor, with Sonia having to pretty much live in an apartment where they have to share a bathroom. And Corrado and Maslova, they pretty much live in a horse farm where Maslova encourages Conrado to seek out a socialite. Vanessa and Ivoni are now rich. Ivoni due to her marriage to Otto, and Vanessa who's married another person that we never see. And during this wedding ceremony, and also Shaini and Fabian are now reduced performing for kids shows and are now dating. During the wedding, Pena gets back with Sandro, which a lot of people, which I'll state my opinion at later on. And Rosario reveals to Ignacio that she's expecting, and the series ends with the Empreguetes plus Shaini and Fabian singing the opening theme, Ex My Love. The end. Now let's discuss why I like disliked. What I liked about the series was pretty much how they fleshed out the three main characters. and how compelling and how they made them compelling, and also another thing I liked was how they made the villains detestable to the point you're rooting for their downfall. And then what I dislike in how they derailed the three Maria's storylines, especially with their romantic subplots. Rosario by having her chase after Fabian, costing her relationship with Ignacio. Sita by having her in a love triangle with not only Pina's brother, but by having her choose between Pina's brother, a Twilight plot love triangle with Ivano, Pina's brother, who's honest, cute, and not a douchebag, and Conrado, a guilt-digging social climber, who only falls in love with her when she becomes rich and famous. Another thing I disliked was, oh my god, how annoying Shiny gets as she tries to sabotage the Empreguetes. Now, my favorite characters in the series would be Sita, because of her storyline. I can relate to her storyline. With Sita, Pina, and Lano, because I'm developing a slight crush on the actor Tom Bastos, and also Sandro. Even though he's an annoying character, Sandro's antics, they kind of, especially the only thing I like about Sandro's character, because Sandro, yes, he starts out annoying, but he winds up changing. But I enjoyed his redemption arc later in the series. My favorite moment would be not only Shaini first attempt at sabotaging the Empreguetes, when she tries to give him that squeaky voice tea, but she wound up drinking it instead of the Empreguetes. And also Sita pretty much quitting her job at the wedding, no less. Another favorite moment is when as the group confront and expose Shaini and Socorro at the award show. And then with improvements, they should have pretty much. With improvements, I wish they pretty much gave some of the characters a lot more characterization. And make Rosario a lot more likable in the later half, because in fact, Rosario, in my opinion, she was kind of like my least favorite character to be, because she suffers a lot from main character syndrome, especially with her pursuing her dreams and pretty much her neglecting her boyfriend Ignacio in the process. Though there is other factors involved, and then the miscommunication, which seems to be a big problem in novellas. There's barely any. There's always a miscommunication error. But my favorite Empreguete song is Maria's Brasileiras, because of how catchy the song is and how it's in the early 10s electro pop sound. My favorite non-Empreguete song is X My Love and Lay Lay Lay. They're both been in my hit especially lately, it's been in my head lately, that I played that song on loop when I was cooking earlier this week. And that concludes my podcast episode. I hope you enjoy. For my next podcast episode, I'll review the movie In the Heights and get into the good, the bad, and the ugly aspects of the movie. From its origins as a stage musical to the development hill and production history of the movie and the elephant room regarding the movie adaptation. And then next month is Black Music Month / Pride Month, I'm doing some podcast episode pertaining to Black music and Pride Month. I do know that my Pride Month podcast episode will be on The Fosters, the ABC Family / Freeform TV show. And then the rest of my podcast episodes, they're going to have a theme with Black music, such as Black artists and crossover success, Ice Cube trilogy issues, the Prince Cinematic Trilogy, and all that. And I hope you stay tuned. You can, if you have any questions, feedback, thoughts, or if you really enjoyed this podcast episode, or you want to be on something I may have missed on this podcast episode, contact me / send me email at cwx@outlook.com. You can listen to this podcast episode on Spotify or wherever platform is available at. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I'll see you guys soon. Goodbye.